Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to the Maryland Maverick. My name's Colin McEvers. Hope you're having a great New Year celebration. 2026 is right around the corner. It's going to be an interesting year. 2025 has been very momentous. It's been a lot of things going on. And I'm looking forward to 2026 and everything that's going to come with it. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about Vanessa Parazzal. We're going to be going into it a little bit deeper. I had talked about it on Facebook about a week ago regarding the situation. Vanessa is a mother, a 24-year-old Latina who was detained by ICE in her neighborhood in Salisbury about 2 weeks ago. She was taken to a facility, then she was transported to a Louisiana facility, and it's an ongoing process. There are a lot of lawyers involved. There are a lot of friends coming out and talking about the situation, family members being very upset. Of course, these kinds of situations happen whenever somebody is deported. There's a whole fuss about it. And even some of our state leaders like Wes Moore, Chris Van Hollen, a federal senator, and state leaders in Maryland are taking notice of this whole situation. So it's very relevant, and we're going to discuss it a little bit more. Open Agenda, which is a local public access channel in Salisbury, Wycomico, run by Joe Venosa, a professor at Salisbury University who I debated on illegal immigration about 2.5 months ago in Purdue Hall. It was a very interesting, very inspiring, passionate, very knowledgeable, fact-based debate. I totally recommend that you go check it out on the Maryland Maverick YouTube channel. 1.5 hours of pure gold, pure political gold. And Open Agenda is also run by this guy named Joe White, who is running for District 5, Wycomico County Council. He is a Republican. I know him as well. And I know everybody. I know a lot of people in the Wycomico scene, in the public, in the political and media scene. But Open Agenda and Joe Venosa specifically recently had on 2 of Vanessa Parazzal's friends. One was a neighbor, and another one was her sister-in-law, I guess, named Sophia and Elizabeth. They came on the show. Joe Venosa, in his classic New York accent, he asked them some questions about the dear friend Vanessa, what happened, things of this sort. And, they give the whole sob story, which we've heard rehearsed over and over again, rehashed. I'm glad they were able to, have them on so that the public could kind of absorb and see a lot of pathos, a lot of appeal to emotions, a lot of, she was a great person, she was a great mother, things that you would expect from your friends. And I understand, if my friend or my family member, whoever, were deported by ICE or were taken to prison for committing a crime or were punished for not abiding by the law, I guess I'd be a little bit upset too. So I can understand. I have compassion and I empathize in that way. I get it. I understand. If a friend of mine were taken away because they were an illegal immigrant, I might be a little bit upset too. Okay. However, we need to address the fact that this is not an issue. This is actually not a problem. Donald Trump was elected, after all, by a popular vote, and one of his major campaign platforms, if I'm not mistaken, was to deport millions of illegal immigrants, many of whom came in during the Biden administration. Of course, it was about 6 or 7 million illegal immigrants, maybe more actually, who came in during the Biden administration. And a lot of them were terrible criminals. A lot of them were drug smugglers, terrible people. They elected Trump to secure the border and to ensure that we had a country, because a country does not exist. A nation does not truly exist if we have open borders. No borders, no country. That is totally true. So President Trump and the government that we currently have, Congress, the White House, all these branches of government, were elected to deal with the massive problem that we had at the southern border. The fact that all these illegals were coming in, that we did not have security, that we did not have a secure border. And we do now. The only way to have an actual border and subsequently to have a nation is to enforce border laws and to enforce immigration laws. That means that if someone is in the country illegally, regardless of how they came in, I've heard the sob story about the fact that she came in when she was 2 years old. She didn't know what she was doing at the time when she came in. She grew up here. She was a great mother. She was a great community leader. According to Sophia in the interview, she had a great smile. She had a cute, wonderful smile. I get it. Honestly, I've considered this deeply in the past couple months, and I've seen a lot of memes about it on Instagram and Facebook and things of that sort. The notion that we shouldn't be deporting Latina baddies. And for the older people or the more seasoned people watching this, a baddie is someone that's very attractive. And, I get it. I get the notion. I get the idea. I've thought about it deeply, philosophically speaking. Vanessa Parazzal was a 4'10", 100-pound, 24-year-old Latina, and she had a husband and a child. The husband was some white American guy, whatever, I don't know. And now he doesn't have his wife around or a mother to his child. I get it, that's unfortunate. And it goes into the broader idea of the Latina baddie situation, the philosophical question, theoretical. And I thought about it, I contemplated it deeply. But then I decided, I said, I get the idea, I get the sentiment, but we need laws in the country. We need a border. We need a nation. We need to ensure that the United States has people in the country who actually know that if they break the law and if they violate, and they knowingly violate the laws of this country, which is what Vanessa Parazzal actually did for many years. She knew that she was not a citizen, and yet she stayed in the country without becoming a citizen. We should have no compassion or sympathy in a legal sense for people that do that. They need to be deported. They need to go back to their country of origin. That's just what has to happen, because if we let people off, regardless of the conditions or the circumstances, if we let people off who've committed crimes, immigration crimes, then we will not have a border. People will see that as weakness. Understandably and correctly, they will view it as weakness, and then the worst of the worst, and thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of other people throughout the country will flood into the nation. We do not have the social nets. We do not have the resources. We do not have the capacity to care for millions and millions of foreigners throughout the entire world. And that's exactly what we saw during the Biden administration. They were soft on crime. They were soft on illegals. They gave amnesty. And what happened? Millions and millions of illegal immigrants poured into the United States, as can be expected. So, again, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about the fact that she was a good mother, that she was a great member of the community, that she had a great smile. I hear this from Sophia. She had a cute smile. From Elizabeth, she did not deserve this. We've seen things like this happen in history, implying that it's like a fascistic government that we have. We've seen things like this happen in history, and it's important that we talk about it. It's important that we talk about it because we've seen things like this happen in history. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have seen things like this happen in history. We've seen when people break the law, they are punished accordingly. And that's exactly what's going on in this country in regards to ICE and deportations. I have to be the necessary evil. I have to be the bad guy. I have to say it. I know there are a lot of Republicans out there who are like, oh, well, we need her back. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. I don't see the issue with it. It reminds me of this guy, Mike Goldberg. He's also part of Open Agenda, actually. And he also claims to be a Republican. He also claims to be a a member of the GOP. And, I know him. I have a soft spot for him. He has a cool kind of like raspy voice. He sounds like this, and my name is... Okay, let me do a performance, okay? I'm Mike Goldberg now. I'm talking about illegal immigration in the country, okay? I was watching some open agenda videos, particularly from like a couple months ago. And so I did my research, I did my studies, I did my due diligence. Now let me try. And no, this was actually the video after Joe Vanessa interviewed the two friends who were, of course, going to stick up for their friend Vanessa, and they're going to say like, oh, the conditions in the ICE facility are so bad. It's so terrible in the ICE facility. She's sleeping on the ground, and she doesn't even have a pillow, and the water doesn't taste good, and the food is terrible, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, of course, you're going to exaggerate the situation because it's your friend. Okay, we get it. All right, you're going to lie, you're going to exaggerate, you're going to say all these things about how terrible it is to get sympathy from the masses, to defend your friend who, again, was here illegally and breaking the laws of this country. But Mike Goldberg, he gives his a little analysis after the fact of the interview, after Joe Vanessa interviews them, and promulgates the sob story. Again, they have an open agenda. They say this. Their agenda for this video was to make it seem like it could happen to anybody. It could happen to any of your friends or family members. Okay. Mike Goldberg, a Republican, says, it was very compelling. She did nothing wrong. She did nothing wrong. She did nothing wrong at all. She should be forgiven. I don't understand why this Trump administration is doing this. She did nothing. How was Vanessa feeling? How was Vanessa feeling when the ICE agents came and deported her and detained her? How was she feeling about that? Well, she was probably feeling scared, And that's how people who violate the laws of the country should feel. They should feel scared, okay? Because we can't allow it to happen. We can't allow it to happen. It is counterintuitive, and it is totally against the whole notion and the whole idea of having a government and having a country and having borders and having territory. And that is actually not something that is prohibited or frowned upon in the Bible or in Christianity. Towards the beginning of the episode, Joe Vanessa gives the classic liberal talking point, the classic atheist liberal talking point, which all these atheist, illegal immigrant loving, deportation hating fanatics will give you. That it's not Christian. That as Christians, they're telling Christians as atheists, and they tell Christians and people of faith that, it's not Christian to deport people. You should forgive everybody. Well, spiritually, of course, you should forgive everybody, by the way. You should let the refugees in. That's what Christ would want. He would want you to accept these people in, to give them a home, to give them warm, loving arms. That's what we should do as a country. This idea that the Bible and that Christianity as a religion restricts and prohibits the creation of nations, that it is unchristian, that it's unholy, it's totally bogus. There are many parts of the Bible that talk about the establishment of territory, of borders, of nationhood. There are parts where certain groups of people are deported in a moral sense. There's nothing, again, in the Christian belief, of course, there is the belief and the truth that all people are created equally by God, that everybody has inherent moral worth, that everybody is equal in the eyes of God. And that's, of course, true. But that doesn't mean that we have to accept people into our country when we have clear laws. Christianity dictates that we as Christians, as believers, ought to abide by the laws of our country unless the government is creating laws, unless that law is not biblical, unless those laws are contrary to the biblical teachings which you can find in the Bible. And again, deporting people, establishing borders, establishing a country and a nation, that is not against the Bible in any sense, in any way. Again, we need to respect the fact that people are equal in the eyes of the Lord. We need to forgive people for committing wrongs and for committing trespasses and things of this sort. Of course, that's self-evident, but that does not mean that we should just open up our borders, get rid of them, and have a country that can be totally invaded and flooded with foreigners from around the world. Because Joe Venosa, towards the beginning of the video, again, he states that the fact that this happened during Christmas is ironic. It's a cruel irony, quote unquote. And that's just wrong. It's not a cruel irony. This idea that it is unchristian is just, it's bogus, and I don't like to hear it. I really don't like to hear it. We have the power of the Lord on our side, okay? We have the power of Christ. We know that Christ is king, okay? We know that Christ is king. This is a Christian country. This is a Christian nation. And people that are antithetical and that do not respect our laws and our customs and our traditions and our country and our government, that do not respect that, they need to be deported. And there's nothing wrong with that. This whole thing actually leads me to something more important. Of course, we're going to hear the liberal talking points from someone like Joe Venosa. He's a leftist. He is left-leaning. He believes that illegal immigration isn't really that big of a deal, that we should just give amnesty to everybody. He also believes, and he'll probably tell you this as well, this is nothing new. This is no big secret or anything like that. He believes that declining birth rates in America can only be addressed by letting in a bunch of illegals, a bunch of foreigners into our country so that they can repopulate and basically have a bunch of kids. And of course, in the long term, that would lead to the kind of evisceration of the descendants of the people who built the country. But anyhow, this is just liberal stuff. This is liberalism, democratic kind of talking points. It's not surprising. However, I want to talk a little bit about Joe White. And he is, again, one of the key producers, one of the people, the head honchos of the Open Agenda show. And he's running for Wicomico County Council as a Republican. He's going to run as a Republican. Okay. But his shows, the shows that he's been on, it's very clear that he's not someone who necessarily supports ICE. Again, it's in the name, Open Agenda. They have a certain agenda. They don't want to just, bring on people, talk about random things, ask questions. They do have a particular political agenda in Wicomico. They'll tell you that themselves. There's no secret about it. And they have clearly, in the past couple months, with this whole ICE situation, it started with Julie Giordano and Mike Lewis wanting to implement the 287G program in Wicomico, which at the end of the day ended up being stifled by Anthony Brown with his memo, Anthony Brown the Clown. He put a halt on that by sending a legal memo to Wicomico. So that was very unfortunate. But Open Agenda was against the whole 287G program from the get-go. Towards the beginning, like in September, late September, when they were talking about it and discussing it, Joe White brought on Mike Langford, and I like Mike Langford, by the way. Mike Langford, this random liberal woke lady, this white, I forget what her name is, she's from Fruitland. And, Joe Venosa, they're talking about it. They're talking about the fact that this whole ICE program, they're talking about the logistics of it. They're talking about the fact that, there's not enough transparency. It hasn't been talked about enough with the public. It's sloppy. It's not being done in a good enough process. It's not being done good enough, bro. This is so crazy. It's not being good enough. We need to do it better, without actually addressing the fundamental purpose, the bigger picture, which is deporting people who shouldn't be in this country, working with ICE, allowing the county to work with ICE to get people who should not be in the country out of America, out of Wicomico. Make it safer for Wicomico residents. And Joe White, in particular, never really pushed back against the negative things that were being said about ICE. He had on Josh Hastings, of all people, big time liberal Josh Hastings on the county council of Wicomico, a big critic of ICE. Josh Hastings goes on Open Agenda, says that ICE is not supported by the community, that deportations are terrible, they're bad, they're awful, that members of the community don't want illegals to be deported, all these things. And Joe White just eats it up. He says, oh yeah. Sounds good, yeah. Tell me a little bit more, Josh Hastings. About how terrible ICE is. He's bringing on these liberals and these left-wing figures to basically badmouth and criticize and totally overshadow the whole purpose of immigrations, customs, and enforcement, which is to enforce the law, to protect our country, and to get illegals who Wicomico residents do not want in the country and in the county out. That is the fundamental purpose of ICE. And I don't care how many good people they deport. I don't care how many good illegal criminals they deport. They are doing their job. They are protecting the country. They are making sure that we have a country. If we did not have ICE, if we did not have deportations, if we did not have a way to enforce the law of the land in regards to immigration and in regards to borders, we would not have a country. We would have tens of millions of people throughout the country flood and storm into this great place within the next year. And most of them are not people who support or proponents of Western values. Most of them don't speak English. Most of them do not believe what we believe. We would not be a country. We would not be the US. We would be just invaded. We would be gone. This country would be gone if we did not have ICE, if we did not have deportations. And someone like Joe White, who claims that he is a Republican and wants to serve on the board on the Wicomico County Council, he's someone that wants to represent the people of District 5. And he discredits the fact that a large percentage of the constituency is in support of having a country, is in support of having borders, in support of not having their social resources and their lives and their jobs and their opportunities taken away by foreigners who aren't supposed to be here, who are breaking our laws and disrespecting our country. He's not going to talk about that. He's going to disregard that entire purpose and that entire mission. And he's going to just say, oh, well, it seems like the community is really scared about it. Well, tell us a little bit more about the ACLU. Tell us a little bit more about the great work that the NAACP is doing. Tell us a little bit more, Mrs. Old Woke White Woman who has such compassion for illegals and is not putting the interests of Maryland citizens and Wicomico residents above the interests and the goals and the objectives of foreigners, by the way. He's disregarding that. And we can't have a Republican like that, a total rhino who doesn't care about our laws on the county council. We just can't. We can't have people like that representing us as Republicans because they're not. People that are in support of illegal immigration and mass migration should get the hell out of the Republican Party. Go away. We don't want you. You are not going to be in our tent. We love deportations. We love our country. We love borders. We love the law, okay? We love it. It's beautiful. And we have a beautiful country. And if we do not have ICE, if we do not have borders, then we don't have a country. And that should make any patriot really angry. The fact that there are a lot of people who don't want to have a country, a lot of people who do not care about our nation, who do not care about our laws. So, and I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, you're just doing the dirty work of Julie. Julie's putting you up to it, Colin. Julie's making you say this because she doesn't like Joe White. Oh. You know who I'm sucking up to? God. I am a follower of Christ. And this is a Christian nation. Okay, it should be. Anyways, it should be a Christian nation. I believe in Western values. I believe in the people, and I believe in the ideas and the values that established this country and made it great. And if we do not have a country, and if we do not have borders, then all the values and the ideas and the traditions and the cultures that America is founded and built upon will fall, crumble, and die. That is what I love. That is what I'm fighting for. And if Joe White comes out and says, okay, I'm going to be the most ardent supporter of ICE and deportations and getting rid of these criminal illegals who should not be in our country, I am going to be the most ardent and most passionate and most vigorous supporter of ICE, and I want to get these illegals out of the community, maybe I'll support him, actually. There might be a primary challenger who the people that are friends with me are going to put up against him, and people will say, "Oh, you're just attacking him because you're trying to get ahead because you have to do that because of the people that you're around, because of your political circles." No, it's not because of that, actually. It's because of my love for this country and my patriotism and my love for Wycomico County. And I don't like to see the county, and I don't like to see the state, and I don't like to see the country disrespected. If you're a criminal, if you're here illegally, you're going to be deported. End of story. But a lot of people are making it very complicated, very complex. I am coming at it from a sense of rationality. I'm the one who's rational. And I might seem bad, I might seem arrogant or angry or frustrated. And in a way, I do get angry about it. And I do get frustrated about it because there are people who are allowing this to happen, and we need it to stop. But we just need to stay committed to the mission. We need to make sure that we don't have rhinos. We need to make sure we have Maryland first, Wycomico first, patriots in positions of power. And that is exactly what I will always fight for and will always promote and promulgate on my show. So thank you everybody for listening. I hope you have a great New Year's celebration. Please like and subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Again, have a great day. See you later.